Jonathan Lee Riches investigates. I am covering the Moscow, Idaho Bryan Kohberger case. By now, most of you have seen the newly released body cam footage of a traffic stop where Bryan Kohberger was pulled over by police for allegedly running a red light or being in an intersection when a green light turned red. This incident happened about a month before the Moscow, Idaho murders. And people have been talking about that traffic stop and wondering whether that traffic stop was illegal or not. And I say this because there is people out there saying the officer who pulled Bryan Kohberger over was in the wrong, while other people are saying that it was a legit traffic stop. I'm going to show you body cam. We've already seen this, but listen to what Bryan Kohberger explains to the officer, and the officer acknowledging what he said. Listen to this. Bryan Kohberger said the light was green. He went into the middle intersection. He couldn't proceed. The light turned red. And asking the officer what he could have done. And listen to what the officer says to Bryan Kohberger, and then we'll further discuss.
Hello, I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so
I was behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Do you know the
Yep.
entrance to Johnson, that street?
Thank you. Do you have the registration and insurance?
Yes.
Do you remember where you pointed to when you Yeah, so if, like, you know that light
Let me just get this for you out.
just before it?
You what?
I'm just going to get this out for you.
Okay.
That street. Flex.
So would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck like in their intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done been?
Not-
Just
You're
back up
not
in that
supposed to
situation?
block an intersection like that in Washington, so just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, and then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go, because a lot of people do what you just did, right? Is like you're sitting in the intersection waiting, and then turns, and then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion with speeding because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh,
Did you see that?
no.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who like made a right. They didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Yeah, so I would just advise,
Yeah.
just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up and not.
I don't know if there's a best
'Cause
thing
I
to do in
couldn't-
that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody,
Yeah.
or you're going to run a red light. So, or you're going to be sitting in an intersection.
Yeah.
There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so. Yeah, where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
So even if
interesting.
you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one in front. Like there's like a certain
Yeah.
margin from which you can actually kind of place your vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law
Yeah.
in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when
Yeah.
you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah. I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh no, yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I'm not,
find
like,
it for you.
disagreeing with
Yeah.
anything. But,
1 second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Expires November 22nd, or 2022. Okay. And
yeah, one of those is actually.
yeah, okay, that looks good. I'll hand that back to you. I'm just gonna go check your info. I'll try to find that RCW, the law for you, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right.
Now, there is case law, Shirk versus Redding in Washington State University, where this pullover happened, that clearly explains about the process of, when a light turns red when you're in the middle of the intersection. It doesn't seem like, according to this case law, that it is against the law what Bryan Kohberger did.
So this is Shirk versus Redding, a Washington State case. A driver who lawfully enters a controlled intersection under a green light and is still within the intersection at the instant the light turns red for him and green for drivers proceeding in a different direction may proceed cautiously through the intersection, but in so doing must use reasonable care with the circumstances of traffic then existing. So it's saying here that they can proceed through the intersection if it turns red while they're going through the intersection. Let me know what you think. Shirk versus Redding. This is a Washington State case.
The officer then cited a different code about you have to stop at the intersection when the light is green if you see traffic in front of you at the crosswalk. She cited 4661-202.
Okay, so I found it. So I don't know what in Pennsylvania where you go to find laws, but in Washington it's called the Revised Code of Washington. So I'll try to turn my brightness up, but it's just called an RCW, so it's RCW 46.61.202, so it's no driver shall enter an intersection unless there is significant space on the other side of the intersection to accommodate the vehicle he is operating without obstructing the passage of other vehicles, despite any traffic control signal indications to proceed. So you had a green light, so you're thinking you can go, but you're blocking the intersection. Yeah. So that's, if you're ever curious in any laws in Washington, just Revised Code of Washington. So I'm not writing a ticket or anything like that today. I understand you're from Pennsylvania, but in the future, don't proceed through the intersection. You can't get stopped for that alone, unless you can clearly just clear it right away.
Okay.
So
then basically, I understand.
You're just supposed to wait behind the white line. Drivers do it all the time. But
it never even occurred to me that was actually something wrong, but well, except for the fact that I was blocking the crosswalk, which is what I went through.
And states vary a lot from laws, like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area, so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh.
Unless I visit an area where there are crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying to
No, not at all. Like, I understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like, I only know it because this is what I do. But if you're ever curious on any more laws, just RCW, and they can be hard to read because it's in legal language. But hope that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Definitely. You too.
Thanks.
So this is Washington State Statute 46.61.202, 2010. Stopping when traffic obstructed. No driver shall enter an intersection or a marked crosswalk or drive onto any railroad grade crossing unless there is sufficient space on the other side of the intersection, crosswalk, or railroad grade crossing to accommodate the vehicle he or she is operating without obstructing the passage of other vehicles, pedestrians, or railroad trains, notwithstanding any traffic control signal indications to proceed. This is what the officer said Bryan Kohberger more or less violated. This statute here, 46.61.202. Let me know what you think.
Do you agree with the officer or disagree? Ultimately, Bryan Kohberger did not receive a ticket. The officer let him go. But is that what officers are doing over there in Washington, pulling people over that get stuck in intersections and giving people tickets? And if people are getting tickets for the behavior, but being in an intersection when it's green and then turn red, but violating this 46-61202 code, is that code unconstitutional? Does a who's at fault here? And I just want to know, because I'm curious whether this pullover of Bryan Kohberger was legal or not. If it wasn't legal, what kind of remedy can people do if they get tickets like this in the state of Washington? Every state is different. Bryan Kohberger explained he's from Pennsylvania. He's not from Washington. He just moved there recently. What do you think about that? And I just wanted to share that. To me, it seems like that probably was an illegal traffic stop. That's my opinion. You might feel otherwise. I think Bryan Kohberger, though I think he's guilty of these Moscow, Idaho murders, I think he was in the right on this one. And I think the officer also realized that, because he didn't get a ticket. And if he got a ticket, I wonder if Bryan Kohberger would have challenged it, or anyone else. I wonder if anyone else has ever received a similar type of ticket and challenge it, or most times people get their ticket and they just accept it and pay their fine and move on. But people do have rights, and it's kind of like a gray area to me. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification button. I'm ready to go for a drive. Definitely going to wear the seatbelt, and I'm definitely not going to, this Bryan Kohberger experience here where he got pulled over reminds me, when I get to an intersection, before I cross over that intersection, I'm going to make sure, even if the light's green, I'm going to make sure nobody's in front of me, because I don't want to be like Bryan Kohberger pulled over, and I don't want to be on any police body cam footage where you guys can see me interacting with police, though I'd be kind and professional, because I'm a very nice individual, and hopefully, pray to God, I never get a ticket. I haven't gotten a ticket in almost like 2 decades, so let's keep that streak going. Everyone be safe. God bless.